Hey guys, this is Nicole Scott.
And this is Sasha Pallenberg.
You know what? Over 3 years ago, Apple had, in my opinion, their very last next big thing when Steve Jobs announced the very first iPad. Right? And now we have the 5th generation available, which is the brand new iPad Air, which is going through an intense review right now. And I hope you guys are going to like it, so check it out.
Apple's iPad Air is the 5th generation iPad, and design-wise, it's the first time that we actually have a departure from what we've been seeing from basically the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation. In fact, it's much lighter than all other tablets in its class, at just 469 grams. So taking a walk around the device, you can see that we have separate volume buttons here. This is to put the tablet on silent. Up here's the power button. This is the 5 megapixel iSight camera. An interesting feature at the very top is that you see what they've added in a second microphone, so one of these will act as a noise cancelling to help improve your FaceTime or Skype chats. Headphone jack right over here, nothing around this side, and it's only 7.5 millimeters thin, in case you were wondering. Here around the bottom is where we have the lightning connector, and then we have dual stereo speakers. So under the hood we have the Apple A7 SoC, which is found in the iPhone 5S as well. The A7 promises to be faster, more power efficient, and it's compatible with 64-bit applications. It also comes with 1 GB of RAM and starts at 16 GB of storage for the Wi-Fi model, and it goes all the way up to 128 gigs for the Wi-Fi cellular model. If you're looking at options for connectivity, it has 14 LTE bands, HSPA+, UMTS, GSM, Edge, CDMA, and eDVO. In addition to standard Bluetooth 4.0 and AGPS with GLONASS support, you'll also get dual band 802.11 A, B, G, and N Wi-Fi with one major difference. The Air includes MIMO, multiple input, multiple output connectivity, a feature that's starting to become a lot more commonplace in tablets. What this means is the iPad takes advantage of more than one antenna, allowing for the device to send and receive data much more quickly. The Air also supports a resolution of 2048 by 1536, giving this device a pixel density of 264 ppi.
So that's pretty much the history of the iPad right in front of us. Over here we have the very first iPad, came out in 2010. This is the iPad 4 from last year, and this is the iPad Air, and we also have the iPad mini. That's not the Retina version, but we come to this some later. Let's start with the SoCs. This was the Apple A4, a 1 GHz single-core processor SoC. Over here on the iPad 4 we have the A6X, that's a dual-core processor, and on the iPad Air, or in the iPad Air, we have the brand new Apple A7. It's also a dual-core one, but it comes with a 64-bit architecture and also has this M7 coprocessor in there that we already knew from the iPhone 5S. Let's talk a little bit about the size of these devices. The very first iPad, I mean, look at this. This was quite bulky. 13.4 millimeters. And I still think that the iPad 4 was a bulky tablet, but they already slimmed it down to 9.4 millimeters. So they got just 4 millimeters off it. And finally, with the brand new iPad Air, it's 7.5 millimeters. In terms of the weight, there's also a huge difference. The very first iPad weighed 680 grams, the iPad 4 662, and the iPad Air 478. What's also interesting is the screen size. Well, not really the screen size because they are all 9.7 inch, but the resolution. While the first 2 generations of the iPad came with a resolution of 1024 by 768, the iPad 4 and the iPad 3 also, the iPad 4 and the iPad Air are sporting a resolution of 2048 by 1536. But you know what I also would love to show you is if you compare the iPad Air to the iPad 4, right, and you can see where the way they were slimming down the bezels on the side, this made such a huge difference. Right? And it also shows you that they were adopting the design of the iPad mini. And this gives you a little bit of an idea the size of the iPad mini, even the upcoming one with Retina and the iPad Air. And I mean, look at this, how it looked before with the iPad 4. Right, so that's a huge difference, and therefore I still think, you know what, build-wise and the form factor, this is just an absolutely amazing 10-inch category tablet. Talking about the pre-installed software of the iPad Air, well, like with any Apple device out there, the good news is there is no bloatware on it. The bad news is there's almost no software pre-installed. So without connecting it to the iTunes Store, to your Apple ID, this is a pretty naked device. Well, of course, we're getting photo albums and camera software and Apple Maps. I'm not so sure if I want to use that one. Which actually got way better since they launched it. We have the newsstand over here, which helps you to subscribe to magazines. So, for example, I'm using this, I'm reading this Travel Taiwan magazine here, and I have a couple of other magazines in there. So the Engadget distro, which they are not updating anymore, or I have the latest issue of Wired, of the digital version in here. Well, Sasha, of course this is a digital version. We're talking about a digital device here. There is not much pre-installed on there. Well, Apple announced something, you're getting some additional free software with the new devices, and here we are. So what you're getting right now is Keynote, iBooks, Numbers, and Pages. Forget about this iBook thing. That was free all the time, but you're definitely getting, let me go back, you're definitely getting Keynote, Numbers, and Pages. So when you are into presentations, this might be very, very interesting for you. So this is a kind of presentation software. This is kind of Apple's way of doing PowerPoint. Let's keep it like this. I tried it. I totally hate it. I just can't do a presentation on a tablet. Sorry to say that, especially when you don't have a keyboard right now and you don't have a real Windows mode on a mobile OS. But there are people out there, you know, that are preparing them on their MacBook and then just importing it to their iPad. The same with Numbers. I don't want to do any calculation or spreadsheets on my iPad, and Pages is a nice word processor. In combination with the keyboard, I could definitely see this Office suite that Apple is offering the users with the new iPad Air can come in handy. But you know what, for me, I'm still a laptop user, and to be frankly, this still feels pretty naked for me in terms of the software that you're getting from Apple right away. So without your Apple ID, you're pretty much lost.
What's interesting though is if you run something like Geekbench, it'll score around 2,700 in multi-core mode and around 1480 in single-core mode. But when you compare it to the iPhone 5S, it actually scores twice as much. The iPhone 5S will get you 722 in single-core and around 1300 in multi-core. But does the iPad Air feel twice as fast as the iPhone 5S? Not really. But when you are comparing the iPad Air to the iPad 4, the numbers are twice as high. And as you can see here in FeatureMark, we're scoring around 54 frames per second, which is more than enough for most gaming scenarios. Now when it comes to sound, technically, the iPad does offer stereo speakers. However, the placement is on either side of the lightning ports and both facing in the same direction. All right, now let's check out the sound quality.
Now big respect to the Shambhala Massive, from Town Forest Road, bringing the good vibes all the time.
I mean, it does sound good, it has bass. My one issue with it is if you're holding it like this, you have like pretty big vibrations onto your hand. The display on the iPad Air is 9.7 inches and has a resolution of 2048 by 1536. This is one of the best displays that is currently on the market. You can see the blacks are very black. Color saturation looks fabulous. The greens look great. So it's just a really gorgeous display. So here we are checking out the iPad outside, checking out the viewing angles. It's an overcast day, it's not incredibly sunny, but you can see that there definitely is some glare on the display, but overall it's not too bad. I'm not entirely sure how you feel about cameras on a tablet, but they are good in a pinch. I'm not really using them and I'm laughing at people who are, but I get it when you need to. So the 5 megapixel rear eyesight camera is pretty much the same thing that we've seen in the previous 2 iPads. It has the exact same autofocus. And in general, the image quality isn't bad. So I took the Air out on a cloudy day. This is actually my bicycle here in the city. I put the HDR on and it did save 2 photos, but I am going to show you all of them, you know, still and blur over here. This is kind of mid-afternoon when it's cloudy. Now let's head over to, here's some nice shoes that I found, really interesting. I'm not sure how anyone's gonna walk in those. So I thought I would kind of take this and look at the people. I mean, for people who were walking pretty quickly, it did an okay job capturing them. And if you take a look even at the video that I took,
As well as a microphone test on the Apple iPad Air. It's about 4 o'clock, very cloudy day.
Wow, what an amazing platform the iPad Air is. I mean, especially, I was so excited about the new A7 processor, the very first 64-bit SoC. We can still argue if it's necessary to have 64-bit right now, but in terms of sheer performance, I mean, Apple was kind of putting a slide on saying this is 72 times faster than the original iPad. It's also 2 times faster than the former iPad, the iPad 4. But there are also some, cons in terms of there's no micro SD card slot, right?
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks in my opinion, but that's Apple. They never had one.
yeah.
So, but besides that, in terms of the specification and what you're getting for your money, this might be the most competitive 10-inch tablet that's out there.
We've been waiting a long time for the 10-inch iPad to look as sleek as the iPad mini. So thank God Apple has finally kind of put their design pants on and made a sexy tablet. This is probably the best looking 10-inch tablet on the market. And the back, ooh, so well built.
It definitely is. It looks, well, you just nailed it. It looks sexy. It sounds kind of weird to call a gadget sexy, but you know what, everyone, and then especially with Apple products, it's happening.
Absolutely. Apple is well known for their Retina displays that are just basically 2048 by 1536, and this has the same display that we've seen in the previous generations. So thank God they didn't disappoint us.
No, they definitely didn't. Let me give you 3 words. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. This display is just mind-blowing. Like it was already on the previous generation, on the iPad 4 and on the iPad 3, but especially now with this form factor, it kind of feels more compact. And once again, I just love this display. So far, in my opinion, even though there are some displays out there on the market on Android device with a higher resolution, this display is still beating them all.
So the camera on the iPad Air is basically the exact same one as what we had in the iPad 4. So we don't want to spend too much time on it because that's been extensively reviewed. Basically, it's one of the best cameras you can find on a tablet on the market, period.
Well, that's what it is, right? Even though, once again, I know I'm repeating myself, I'm not gonna take photos or videos with a tablet at all. It looks ridiculous. I would prefer to use my Google Glass. It might also look ridiculous, you know, but at least people kind of think it looks cool or whatever. Still, we have to give Apple credit for this. These cameras are great. Also the front-facing camera, if you want to use FaceTime, if you're into video chat and all of this, right? These are very, very good cameras for a tablet.
Yeah, and even with camera, just with the video chat, there's the extra mic, so the camera actually is more useful. So yeah, that's why we gave it such a good score.
When it comes to the sound, the best verdict I can give it is just basically average, right? It has stereo speakers, but they are on one side, and especially when you're holding it in a landscape mode, you're covering it at all. When you're just lifting your hand again, the sound is still not super good, right? It is average. It's loud enough to hear it. What I love about the Apple sound on each and every device with Apple, it sounds warm. No matter if it's very loud or if it has a lot of bass, but it feels warm, and we have to give them credit for this. I'm still not getting it why they're not getting speakers, whether on the back or on the front, above from where you're holding it, and then have a wheeled stereo experience.
Absolutely, and it feels terrible when the bass is coming out of the bottom.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, this thing is flying. No matter what kind of benchmark you're running, no matter what kind of 3D game you're running, no matter video, website rendering, blah, blah, blah. This might be, overall, the fastest tablet because it's based on the fastest SoC that is available right now. Yes, there are some benchmarks where the Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 might be ahead, where the Tegra 4 might be ahead. But overall, this is the fastest SoC that you can get for your money, and therefore this is also the fastest tablet right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and the reason I really like the performance on this is actually that the SunSpider benchmark is insane, and that's for opening web pages. Apple has outdone themselves with by any means with any other tablet on the market. No other tablet can open web pages as quickly, so for me that takes the cake.
We all know that each and every iPad has an amazing battery life, and it's no difference here with the iPad Air, right? It comes in, we've had almost 11 hours of battery life, so this is on the same level as the previous generations, but what you have to keep in mind is they're only using, I think it was a 32 or 33 watt hour battery in there. That's why it's also way lighter right now, way thinner than the iPad 4, for example. And to get this out, this battery life out of this capacity, first of all, of course, it needs a new SoC. So the A7 isn't so battery draining than the A6X was. And I think this is a very, very good battery life. But if we compare this, for example, to the Lenovo's that are coming in at 16 or 18 hours, right? It's not the best battery life on the market.
No, but the one thing about the battery that I do enjoy about the Air versus the previous generations is that when you're using it for a long time, it doesn't heat up as much. So it's more comfortable in your hands. So it's not a life issue, it's just a battery issue.
Turning on your iPad Air for the very first time kind of feels like, oh my god, did Apple just forget to put some software on there? Right? It seems very naked while you have Maps and FaceTime and all of this stuff, right? You have a browser, yeah, I'm getting it. You have your newsstand for your magazines, but you actually really have to connect it to the iTunes, to the App Store with your Apple ID, and then you're not getting only one, but two, no, three free apps from Apple. Keynote, Numbers, and Pages. So if you want to get some work done on the go, you can download these apps. I think they were like around $10 before, right? But I would highly recommend to get a keyboard then, because otherwise it's kind of awkward to use. But still, in terms of software, you're getting an amazing operating system. Let's face this. Even though, you know what, it feels like I'm getting a little bit dizzy when I see this animation that's going on in the background, right? It feels somehow weird. Plus, on top of it, even though that I think that this was a radical change, iOS 7 for Apple, I still would love to see them evolving into something that is more a little bit like Windows 8. It's more a little bit like Android with widgets. So live tiles and widgets. Take some advantage out of this extra screen real estate that you have with a tablet, and just, I mean, this is basically a matrix, and we've been seeing these icon matrix for almost 40 years.
Apple products will never be cheap because they are incredibly premium, and it's understandable. The build quality, the processor, the display, it is all really high end.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, for what you're getting for your money, this makes perfect sense. And to be honest, a lot of people were kind of complaining about Apple being too pricey. And I think they are not. I think they're pretty cheap. When you're looking at the hardware, when we're looking at the build quality, when we're looking at the design. Plus, you always have to keep in mind, if you want to sell this again in a year or two, you're getting way more for your iPad than, for example, for a Nexus 10 or any kind of other Android or Windows tablet. And therefore, I think the price is very, very reasonable.
All right, right, and now for the editor's choice. This gets a little complicated because Sasha and I are not big Apple product users. We'll use them, but we will buy them all of them.
We have them.
Buy them all. And we enjoy comparing them to Android tablets that we prefer to use. But having said that, we can't help but love the products of Apple straight up because of their design, right? They're always just gorgeous. Yeah,
we even love the broken ones, right?
So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like their devices, and to be honest, I think I'm just not saying it because it has to be the best iPad, right? The newest one has to be the best iPad, but this is the best 10-inch tablet ever built. That's it, full stop, right? And therefore, if you're on the market for a new 10-inch tablet, and if you don't care about operating systems, if you just want to use a tablet that you're going to switch on, where you want to connect to an app store, where you want to consume media and surf the web, you need to take a look at the iPad Air. I think right now it has no competitor at all.